Imagine, you are in a quiet Malay village as darkness descends at dusk. The jungle shadows are deepening. The cool evening breeze gently blows through the windows and an eerie silence falls upon the place. Suddenly, you hear the distant roar of a tiger echoing through the trees. But you know this haunting roar is not from an ordinary beast. It could be the harimau jadian, or Were-Tiger, a man who walks among us by day, but stalks the forest as a tiger by night. These tales are not just stories whispered around firelight. They're woven into the culture, spirituality, and even the historical colonial records of the Malay world. This video takes you on a journey through some of these stories of the Were-Tiger, a world where myth and reality blur, and the line between man and beast is never quite clear. Welcome to part 2 of my tiger tales from Colonial Malaya. Were-Tigers, harimau jadian in Malay, are fascinating and deeply rooted figures in Malay folklore, mythology, and even spiritual belief systems. Very simply, a Were-Tiger is a human who can transform into a tiger. It probably has its roots in pre-Islamic Malay cosmology, where the forest and its creatures were believed to be inhabited by powerful jinn or spirits. Tigers were among the most revered of these spirits, often seen as guardians of the jungle. It was believed that spirits of powerful individuals, such as holy men, shamans, or members of nobility, could take the form of a tiger after death. Shrines might even be dedicated to them, and they were believed to protect villagers from harm. Malay historical texts, colonial records, and local oral histories provide intriguing insights into the belief in Were-Tigers, and in this video we will examine some of them. Recorded historical accounts of Were-Tigers in the Malay Peninsula date back to the days of the 15th century Malacca Sultanate. Mills and Blackden's History of British Malaya notes that one of the earliest references to Were-Tigers comes from an early 15th century Ming Chinese source, where accounts from Chinese travelers to Malacca stated that in the town are tigers which turn into men. They enter the markets and walk about with people, but if they are recognized, they are captured and killed. These Were-Tiger problems appear to have persisted after Malacca's capture by the Portuguese in 1511. Godino Derrida, in his 1613 description of Malacca, said that Dom Jorge de Santa Lucia, the first bishop of Malacca, tried to put a stop to a killing spree by Were-Tigers terrorizing the city by solemnly excommunicating them in 1560. Derrida writes, "The bishop decided to put a stop to the evil done by tigers who came by night to Malacca to kill unresisting women and children. Thinking them to be forest dwellers from the interior who could change themselves from men into tigers, the bishop wished to excommunicate them and offered up public prayers in the cathedral church. After the High Mass and the procession of the Feast of the Assumption of Our Lady of the Fortress, he solemnly excommunicated these tigers. Since that time, they have never entered the villages, nor killed men, women, or children, and Christians thank God for it. Many natives, struck by this miracle, were converted in the year 1560. Gunung Ledang, or Mount Ophir, is a mountain located in the Tangkak district of the southern Malaysian state of Johor. The Sejarah Melayu, or Malay Annals, tells the story of the Putri Gunung Ledang, a mythical fairy princess who lived on the mountain and was courted, unsuccessfully, by the Sultan of Malacca. Deridia's description of Malacca notes that the forest surrounding the mountain was occupied by tigers who guard the princess residing there. He goes further by saying that the Orang Benua, or indigenous peoples, learned their magic arts in a cavern at Gunung Ledang and used these arts to transform themselves from human form into tigers. Winstead's 1951 study of the occult in his The Malay Magician also mentions a Were-Tiger that guards the fairy princess of Mount Ophir. He writes that local Malacca tradition says the princess sometimes takes the form of an old woman with a cat. She is said to be able to transform that cat into a ferocious tiger if people attempt to molest her. Some local Malay traditions speak of sacred tigers, or harimau kramat, spirits of powerful individuals who take the form of a tiger after death. Shrines might even be dedicated to them, and they were believed to protect villagers from harm. According to Locke's Tigers of Terengganu, there is a Malay grave in Tanjung Karang, near the mouth of the river Selangor, located at the foot of a fig tree, where pilgrimages and offerings are made by Malay and Chinese visitors. It is said that a certain Raja Abdullah fell in love with a maiden named Miriam, who then disappeared and was supposed to have been taken by the spirits. Raja Abdullah died and was buried at the foot of the fig tree. It is said that if you chance to meet a very large tiger walking along the nearby beach, let it pass unharmed. It is only Raja Abdullah's spirit, and in proof thereof, you will see that it leaves no tracks on the sand. A little further south, in Langat, there is the shrine of Tok Kemarong, which is supposedly guarded by a white tiger, which was said to be his pet during his lifetime. This spirit tiger was said to have one paw substantially smaller than the other one. There had been many who said they witnessed this tiger, including the then district engineer, Mr. Spearing, who said that he saw this tiger's tracks and can vouch for the fact that one footprint was smaller than the rest. This curious feature is thought by the local Malays, at least, to be one of the especially distinctive marks of a harimau kramat, or spirit tiger. Colonial administrators Frank Swettenham and Hugh Clifford both wrote about the almost universal belief that the people of a small state in Sumatra called Kerinci have the power of assuming at will the form of a tiger. Not every Kerinci man can do this, but still, the gift of this strange power of metamorphosis seemed to be pretty well confined to the Kerinci people. At night, when respectable members of society should be in bed, the Kerinci men were said to slip out of their homes, assume the form of a tiger, and venture out seeking fowl, livestock, or people to devour. For example, Swettenham writes about 4 Kerinci men arriving in the district of Perak, and that night, a number of chickens were taken by a tiger. The strangers left the next day and went further up country, and shortly after, only 3 of them returned and stated that a tiger had just been killed, and they begged the local headman to bury it. Clifford also writes about a certain Haji Abdullah in Sayong, Perak. A native of Kerinci, He was caught stark naked in a tiger trap by villagers and was only set free when he promised to pay for the buffaloes he had allegedly killed while he marauded in the likeness of a tiger. On another occasion, some Kerinci men appeared and sought hospitality in a Malay house, and there also the chickens disappeared in the night, and there were unmistakable traces of the visit of a tiger. However, the next day, one of the visitors fell sick, and shortly after, vomited chicken feathers. It should only be fair to say that the Kerinci people themselves strenuously deny that they have these tiger morphing powers ascribed to them, but insist that it's only the inhabitants of a district in the deep interior of Kerinci, called Cendaku, who have this magical ability. Even there, however, is only those who are practiced in the ilmu sihir, the occult arts, who are capable of transforming themselves into tigers, and the Kerinci people themselves are afraid to enter the district of the Orang Cendaku. Of course, one can also say that these suspected so-called were-tigers could well have been just innocent victims who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which was probably the case with this story in Betty Lumsden Milner's book, Damn It and Other Stories. A stranger went to live in a Malay village on the outskirts, of which he soon built himself a small house. Not long afterwards, livestock belonging to the villagers began to be killed by a tiger, and the animal later even killed and devoured a number of Malays as well. Suspicion fell on the newcomer, who had been noticed leaving his house at dusk to go off into the jungle and not returning until dawn the next day. The villagers built a tiger trap, baiting it with a live goat. One evening, the unlucky newcomer was returning to his home through the jungle when he became aware that a tiger was stalking him. There were no suitable trees into which he could climb, and seeing the new trap, he ran to it, and the great door came crashing down, trapping him inside, but at least keeping the tiger safely outside. Not long after dawn, the following morning, the man's shouts attracted the people from the village. They gathered round the trap. He explained to them what had happened, but instead of releasing him, they maintained that his presence inside the trap was proof that he was a were-tiger, now back in human form. Without further ado, they took up their spears and stabbed the poor man to death. Clifford also writes about the Slim River were-tiger. The tale starts with a girl who shockingly discovered that she married the were-tiger, Haji Ali. The unfortunate bride woke up one morning at first light to see him climbing the stairs into the house, possessing his human head, but having the body of a tiger. As the horrified girl watched, the body gradually turned into that of a man, the process finally ending with the disappearance of the tail. Rather naturally, the girl ran away, and nothing would persuade her to return to her husband. Some weeks later, the headman of this village followed the tracks of a tiger which he had shot at and lamed at the front leg. He found that the tracks took him to the steps of Haji Ali's house, and Haji Ali was missing. Much later, a traveler brought news to the headman that Haji Ali had settled down in another neighborhood. He had apparently suffered some form of accident, since his right leg was gnarled and twisted, and he walked with a limp, as though the bones had been shattered by a gunshot wound. In Tigers of Terengganu, Locke writes that in Negeri Sembilan, there's a settlement of were-tigers on Gunung Angsi, who, in human form during the day, study, farm, and live as ordinary people. They were led by a tiger king called Datuk Paroi. There is a place bearing his name on the road between Seremban and Kuala Pilah called Keramat Tok Paroi, and it is considered by Malays, Chinese, and Indians to be well worth visiting to offer up prayers and to make small offerings. There was another tiger king who is said to occupy Gunung Ledang in Johor, Tok Gunung Ledang. He and his tiger warriors are reputed to have once had a battle with Datuk Paroi, who defeated them all, although fighting single-handed. However, Datuk Paroi lost his tail in this skirmish, and subsequently, the hill where they fought was called Bukit Putus, or Broken Tail Hill. Bukit Putus, by the way, is also the site of a major battle in 1875 when British Gurkhas stormed and captured a strong Malay stockade, earning their commander, Captain George Channa, a Victoria Cross, the first to be won in Malaya. But you'll probably hear more about that in a separate video from me later. Winstead's study of Bomos, or shamans, revealed a strong link with tigers, whom he said was the Malay shaman's first intermediary between the normal and the supernatural worlds. In Perak and Selangor, shamans at a seance will, like a tiger, growl and sniff and crawl under mats and lick the bodies of a patient. Dogs and cats were also forbidden at seances for fear the shaman would seize and devour it while in his tiger state. During the seances of a particular shaman in Kelantan, witnesses had testified a tiger appears at least once in almost each of them. The phenomenon of Malayan Were-Tigers certainly seems to have been a global sensation in the 1930s, and even inspired a Hollywood blockbuster. In the 1936 adventure film The Jungle Princess, Hollywood star Dorothy Lamour takes on the role of the orphan girl Ula with her companion tiger Limo. Set in the Pahang jungle in Malaya, the movie is about a young orphan girl who has to grow up by herself in the jungle, looked after by a guardian tiger. The local villagers are suspicious of Ula, who they think is a were-tiger, leading to a lot of drama and action. The movie does an incredible job at recreating the Malayan jungle, and even the dozens of extras seem to look Malay and even speak Malay. This includes the lead star herself, Dorothy Lamour, who speaks Malay almost throughout the movie and even sings a love song in Malay, Bulan di Malam, or The Moon at Night. The Jungle Princess was a major hit and launched Lamour's career as one of the leading movie stars of the era. She was later often cast, sarong-clad, in similar jungle adventure romances, which led her to being nicknamed the Sarong Queen. While one may not necessarily believe that there were such beasts as were-tigers, tigers were most definitely real, and people in colonial times certainly were just as terrified of them as they were of the mythical were-tiger. And as roads carved through previously impenetrable jungles and plantations spread across Malaya, people suddenly found themselves living on the edge of the tiger's sanctuaries. The tiger, once ruler of the forest, suddenly became a threat at the doorstep. In the third and final video in my Tiger Tales series, we will look at how human expansion into their habitat reshaped our relationship with the tiger, and how the echoes of that conflict still shape Malaysia's conservation landscape today. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching and supporting my channel. Don't forget to like and share, and I'm looking forward to your comments below. Cheerio!